I'm going to try the orange paper with my larger die using my C plate. And see, it's impossible to get this all on the edge. Sorry. So I'm trying my C plate. And I'm going to put my B plate on. That's my B plate, C plate, roll it through. And with the C plate, I think it cut. I think it cut all the way through. So now to emboss it, transfer it to my B plate. And see, I think that cut even in the center this time. B plate, my embossing mat. And my B plate on top. Run it through. See what we get. There are some pieces that look like they may not come out, but let's see. So I did get a good cut. There's one little piece here. Let's hope it pops out. It did. So now this is with the heavier cardstock. I'm using the full large die and it cut perfect. But I used my C plate. I used my C plate on that one. So I'm going to try this other die. Putting my C plate in my die. I'm going to cut it this way. Put my paper in and my B plate. Again, this is a full die, or rather large die rather. And if you'll notice, I don't get a very good cut in the center. Let me, I'm going to turn it the other way. And I might need to cut this paper. So I turned it the other way. Let's see what happens if we run it through again. And now I'm going to run it through the long way. I'm still not getting that center. It's still a problem. Turning the thing the wrong way. And now I'm going to transfer it to a B plate to emboss it. I can take that outside edge off. So now I've got my two B plates and my mat in there to emboss it. I have to clear my table here. I'm getting too much of a mess. going on. So it did cut a beautiful cut, but as you notice, I had to turn that, and this one is a little more intricate because it's a tighter large die than the other one, but I ran it through 3 times and then embossed it, and it worked. So sometimes you just have to figure out what works for what kind of paper you're using, and you know, all that good stuff. Now I'm going to do one of these other dies that are kind of intricate. Oh, actually I might do a couple of them, but I want to try this one. I'm going to pause for a minute to clear my table off. I'll be right back. I am going to try this one, and I'm going to try it their way, using the C plate, the matte, the B plate, the die face up, and I'm going to use about 65-pound cardstock again, placing that over my die, and the B plate on top. Now this paper, I think I'm going to have to cut it down a little bit for it to go through. I'm just cutting about right around 1/4 inch off. I don't want the paper to be the thing to stop it from going through right. Okay, so this is about a 65-pound paper weight. That's a pretty intricate die. It is very tough to get it through. And I'm going to lift. The paper cuts quite well. You see the frame there came off. Not a problem. It looks like the paper cut all the way through. I'm going to emboss it now by simply switching to the A plate, the B plate, my die with the paper in it, the matte, and then my B plate again. So it's 2 B plates with the matte and the die in between, and the A plate on the bottom. This is to emboss it, and it kind of helps finish the cut as well. As you can see, those pieces are coming out pretty good. I'm going to use my tool-in-one to get all of that out. And it looks like we have a perfect cut. So there again, it is about 65-pound weight of paper. The cut came out perfectly well. And the reason I'm trying different weights of paper, you know, especially when you get paper different places, you don't always find that same paper again. So you have to kind of know how to work with whatever you have in your stash. So that's why I try various different weights. So I'm going to try it again using their method with the matte on the bottom, the B plate. I'm going to use a heavier piece of paper. This cardstock, I would say, is anywhere from 80 to 110. I don't know exactly. I have one little piece in there. I'm going to put the die face up. Sorry, I think I was off camera. I've got little bits still. Die face up. Now this is the heavier cardstock. And what I want to make sure, first of all, is that the die, the matte, is underneath the die totally. paper on top, B plate on top of that. And I'm going to run this through. Again, tough to get it through. This is a heavy cardstock. It cuts the outer frame pretty good, but it's trying to lift my paper out. I'm going to go ahead and tear that off so it doesn't lift my paper out. Then I'm going to simply put, sorry, I think I'm off a little bit off camera. So now I'm putting the embossing mat over the die. Still the B plate on the bottom. A B plate on top. The embossing mat, die, and paper in between. And like I said, this is a heavier cardstock. I think all the pieces cut. And then again, oh yes, they cut. There's one little one trying to hang on there. So it gave me a little bit of a fuzzy edge. But that did cut on, I think this cardstock is roughly anywhere from 80 to 110 cardstock. So it's a little heavier than the white one. But as you can see, they both went through just fine. This is a lighter cardstock. It embossed and cut without a problem. And the heavier cardstock, there was one piece hanging in, but it finally let go. So they work really, really good. Okay, let's give this one a try. I've been wanting to see this in. Now I'm going to cut it in the lighter weight. I need to cut this down a little bit more. So my A plate, my embossing mat, my B plate, die, cutting ridges up, my paper face down over the die, B plate on top, and let's see what we get here. Okay. Now I did not get a very good cut there. So what I'm going to try is putting my C plate on the bottom. So just my C plate, B plate on top. I'm going to run it through again, see what happens. In the center, I'm still not getting a very good cut. So I'm going to turn it all the way around. This one I have had trouble with, so I'm trying every way possible. And this is using a lightweight cardstock. It's not a heavy cardstock. Still have some problems there. So what I'm going to do now is try to emboss it and see if that helps get it out. That's my B plate. my die with the paper, my embossing mat, and then run it through with the B plate on top. Let's see if that finally does it. It looks like they're all going to come up. Okay. So that came off. Let's see if I can get the rest of this out. Okay, so what I'm getting here is I have one that's a couple pieces that are having a hard time coming out, but then actually lifting this out is rather difficult. Yeah, because this has a lot of little prongs here. This one is going to take poking from the other side. And the reason this one is so hard is because of the fact that you have all those little thin prongs like. And I love this die. I really like this one. This is one of the dies I bought separate, individually. Okay, with a little prodding. I hope I'm in camera here. Okay, that tore. And you know what? I'm just going to tear it out because I'm going to try something else. That one was very difficult to get out without a problem. So what I'm going to do with this is try wax paper. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm going to try this one again. But I'm using a piece of wax paper between the die and the paper. And I'm hoping that will help it to come out more easily. So I have my C plate this time. I'm using my A plate, my C plate, wax paper, my cardstock, which is a lightweight cardstock, and my B plate on top. So that's A, C, die, wax paper, cardstock, B plate. I'm going to run it through. And I'm trying to hold this, keep it from springing here. Oh, there. It's tough sometimes. It is tough sometimes. Now, that was using my C plate. I am going to need to run it through again, but I did get a better cut the first time. I'm going to run it through again. And I think that finishes it up. Now, to emboss that, however, I need to use my B plate on the bottom, my B plate, my A plate, my B plate, my die, wax paper, cardstock, and then my embossing pad on top. Let's run it through. have got so much stuff on my table, I'm just shaking everything. Let's see what we get this time. So, with the wax paper on the bottom, I think we're going to have a little more success getting this whole thing out. Hot diggity. That worked. So, you see what I did there? In order to, because this is so delicate, let me put this on something here so you can see. That is so delicate because these little connections are very narrow. The little prongs there and the flower petals or whatever, they're very narrow. So it's very intricate, but it's also very delicate. So you do have to cut with care. And so I did wax paper on that one. So I would say anything that's very intricate and delicate, let's use wax paper next to the die. So I'm going to try again, but wouldn't that be a pretty background on a card? Oh, you could almost just put that on a card, put your little sentiment or something in the middle, and oh boy, I love this one. I was going to have this one no matter what. I love that one. I'm not satisfied totally though, because I want to be able to cut that with a little bit heavier cardstock. So I'm going to use my heavier cardstock. Let me get it sized down here. And let's try it again. My table's a mess right now, but I don't want to stop. So I have another piece of wax paper here. We've got the A plate. We're going to use the C plate. A plate, C plate. Die face up. Wax paper over the die. My heavier cardstock. This is the one that's roughly 80 to 110 weight of cardstock. B plate on top. Let me find a cleaner one. I'm gonna have to vacuum here in a minute. It's got too much going on. Okay, I'm running through my heavier cardstock with that intricate die using wax paper. Whoops, that almost slipped out of my hand. Oh, this one's gonna be tough. It's gonna be a tough one to go through, but I'm putting it through anyway. And now, I've done so far all of these on my Cuttlebug, because I think probably the majority of people at least have a Cuttlebug. But I do have a Big Shot as well, so I need to see what it does on the Big Shot. Now I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to run it through again before I emboss it. Okay. Now I'm going to emboss, which means this needs to go on a B plate. Leave all of that together. Your embossing pad, B plate on top. I'm going to run it through to emboss. I'm going to run this back again. Let's see what we get here. Now this is the heavier cardstock, so I'm really anxious to see what happens. It's what I would prefer using. I would say this cardstock is probably the weight of Stampin' Up! Cardstock, which is a nice, substantial cardstock, just to give you an idea. And I don't think I got it cut completely yet. I'm afraid to actually try and get that out just yet. I'm going to run it through one more time in my C plate, B plate configuration. When you look at your dies, you can kind of tell if they're not totally cut yet. So as long as they're not lifted out of the die, I would say you can run it through as many times as you need to. I'm going to turn this. In fact, I'm going to try to run it through this way. I'm laying it this way on here since it fits. And let's see if I can get a cut going on here. I still think I have some problems there in the center. So I'm going to put it through one more time. I'm making so much noise. Okay, this time I think we got it. So let's see what we got. This was with my heavier cardstock and wax paper in between. I tell you, if you don't like getting a little bit messy, crafting is not for you. You've got to be willing to make a mess to have some beauty. That's my thought on the matter. You can always clean it up. But I got my cut. I got my cut. There we go. It did make a nice cut. And as you can see, it's a nice, heavier cardstock than the first one. This one was pretty lightweight. You can see that doesn't even sit flat. But isn't that pretty though? It's gorgeous. And it's staying together, not a problem, it's usable. But this one, as you can tell, is a little more substantial. And now the sun is really coming through. It's been cloudy today, but now the sun's shining. Yay! But there we go with the heavier cardstock. And you see I had to run that through several times, but the wax paper makes it where it's going to come out. Otherwise, I never would have been able to get that out, especially with this cardstock. So there you go. Using wax paper is a great tip if you didn't know about it already. When you're using very intricate dies, putting the wax paper first before the paper gives you a nice cut. Now I'm going to try this die. This is a very pretty swirly flourish.